Hello everyone, Dan Swift here, founder and CEO at Numentum, and welcome to the Speaker Series, where we spotlight some of the most interesting minds in the world of revenue generation. At Numentum, we help forward-thinking B2B organizations create better buyer experiences and deliver new momentum to their revenue engine. On this episode of the Speaker Series, we speak with Coley Burke, Chief Revenue Officer at Semperis. We have a great conversation around the importance of building a solid foundation for business, our early days in sales, and the distinction between management and leadership. So Coley, welcome to the series.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. As always, great to see you. I wish we could see you in person, but always nice to see you.
Amazing. Well, Coley, we'll get it started. Now, you're relatively new to Semperis, right? The team there.
Yes.
You're the Chief Revenue Officer. So tell everyone listening today a little bit more about the company, what the company solves for, and maybe what your main area of focus is right now.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Semperis, we have a mission, and our mission is to be a force for good. It's very interesting in what's happening in the market today with the just increase of ransomware. Every single day you hear more and more about ransomware attacks. Some are very highly visible, as we know. Others are not. At Semperis, we're very squarely focused on cyber resilience for Active Directory. Our goal is to provide security and protection for hybrid identities. And today that's very specifically focused on Active Directory because so many of these attacks that are occurring are using vulnerability and weakness in Active Directory to gain access and do bad things. So we like to say we're a force for good. We want to provide tools, solutions, and resource to help companies and organizations thwart and deal with cyber attacks, cyber criminals, and ransomware.
Wow. Okay, so you're the Chief Revenue Officer. With that as a backdrop, you're probably tasked with a multitude of different things, right? So if there is one thing that you're focused on right now, what is it?
So I've been with Semperis since February of this year of 2021, and a very fast-growing company. Clearly, as I mentioned, the market is really taking to what we have. So much of my focus as the Chief Revenue Officer is really just helping to build a solid foundation from which we can grow, and that takes in the form of a lot of things. Some of it is sales process, some of it is things we need to do to just grow and build the right team and the right culture, which I'm a big fan of culture. But then there's the other side of it is how do we really make sure that we are driving towards being a strategic partner, a trusted advisor, and bringing value into our selling conversations. And that's definitely something that I'm very passionate about. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that. But so much of what I'm doing right now is kind of driving some process, but also making sure that the way we conduct our sales campaigns, how we interact with our customers, our prospect, our partners, are all coming from the angle of let's make sure we're true to our mission, do good, add value, and ensure that we are seen as that trusted advisor to our customers. There's so many ways you could mess up a sales campaign today. We happen to be in a segment of the market that you could sell with fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the classic FUD strategy, but that's not the way we operate here. We operate from the position of let's see how we can help and let's start there. And that's a lot of what we're building right now and a lot of what I'm tasked with making sure that we're doing, as well as we build the foundation for our success.
Amazing. Well, you and I have known each other for a number of years now, but obviously I know that you've been in industry, as you say on your LinkedIn profile, for 30 years.
Yeah.
So you've seen a lot, you've worked in lots of different places. I would love to talk a little bit about career progression, because a lot of the people watching and listening to this conversation will aspire to maybe one day get to a position like yourself. So let's break it down. I'd love to find out, first of all, your first job. The first job that you ever had, what was it?
Yeah, it's very interesting. And actually, I was just telling my son, who is a recent college graduate and stepped into his first professional career, he was asking me again about my first role. And I started in this industry in October of 1991. So coming up on 30 years, hard to believe. I started with a company called D&H Distributing, which was a computer parts distributor selling computer parts to white box PC builders. And that was my first job. And I started that job literally 3 months after I graduated college. So I went from high school and college into a field selling role in a remote territory with absolutely zero training. So,
and what was your degree in, just for everyone's edification?
I was an economics major, and I wanted to go into economics. Funny story, I actually went and interviewed with someone in a Department of Economic Development, and I wish I could find this gentleman. He said, he goes, young man, he goes, politics is hard. You won't make any money. You seem like you got a little something going. Go find a job where you can make some money. He crashed my dreams, and I'm glad he did. And I fell into a sales career many years ago. I'm from a long line of salespeople. My grandfather was a very successful seller for RCA for many, many years. So it's in my blood.
Love it, love it. So you started out, you got your first sales job.
Yeah, and you know, for the you know, maybe the younger sellers, I'll never forget. They sent me a box, and in the box was paper flyers, like looked like newspapers. That was our product list. It was a newspaper and an account list on paper, and a map, and said, "Go ahead, go start seeing people." And I'm like, okay. So I walk in with my flyers, and well, one, you had to go look at a physical map and use payphones to figure out where people were. It was just before, I'll never forget when I got my first cell phone in my car. No email, you know, cell phones were difficult, but you know, I look at that experience now, and I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. As I say, I was trial by fire. There was no fancy training program, no enablement. It was, here's what you have to do. Go start selling stuff. That's what I did.
It takes me back to when I started my career as well, exactly the same. No training. I was given a green book of insurance brokers and intermediaries, and I was pointed to the telephone. It's like, make it happen. See you later. Careers are very seldom linear, right? So has there been one or maybe two or more pivotal points in your career that have set you on that trajectory to where you are today?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about that, and there might be a couple. So one of them, probably in particular, is a little bit more on the, you know, a little bit more on the personal side.
Yeah.
But you know, I came up through distribution. I worked for a couple big organizations, and then I moved into. I wanted to move into the vendor side because I started in distribution in the channel, and I really enjoyed the vendor side. So I moved to a vendor. I was 3 weeks on that job, and I was in a very serious car accident on a business trip, and it took me out of the business for close to 6 months. I was about 30 years old at the time. My son was about to be born, and that was probably a moment when Coley, the planner that wanted to say, I got to do this in this time frame, that all went out the window, and I said, I have to do what. You know, I had a second chance at maybe life, shall we say. I was lucky, and it changed my thinking a little, but I think it helped me realize what I wanted to do. So that was kind of one. You know, then after I left that organization, I went to work for an individual that I ended up working for a couple different times post that, who I tended to follow that person because he represented someone who I really enjoyed. I respected him. I had great years in his sales cultures. So I think what helped me at that point was I wanted to go work for companies, people, organizations that I felt good about, where I felt really good about not only what they were doing, how they went about it, the style, the culture, but, you know, also just kind of their approach to sales. And, you know, a couple big companies through there, I made the decision to go to my first startup. I was very early, was a very early startup. I was there 3 months, and we got acquired by EMC at the time, corporation, now Dell EMC. And I will tell you that I spent 11 years at EMC. Well, I guess the last year and a half was probably Dell EMC, but those years taught me a lot because, you know, EMC maniacally customer first, just always. And they teach you sales process. They teach you a really good sales process and how to go about it and how to make sure you're driving what the customer wants, but also achieving goals. And I love my EMC years. And I had the opportunity there in 2012 to get elevated into a leadership position. And I had done leadership prior. It didn't stick. I wasn't ready for it. But when I stepped in 2012, it did, and I really enjoyed it. And I got to see a bigger, broader segment of the market. I was involved in product and marketing and sales, and I had a lot of different experiences inside of EMC. And that 2012 movement into leadership, it just helped me just start understanding what I wanted to do. It's the same reason I got into coaching youth sports. I like being involved with people and helping them together realize what we can do to be successful, and then helping them realize their full potential. That became kind of a driving force for why I wanted to keep doing what I'm doing today. And then also why I ended up in a company like Semperis, because we're early, we're building everything. Right. I absolutely love that piece of it. So, I look at one thing that could have been a tragedy in my life, but I turned it into a, hey, let me reassess. And then, I'd say that move into EMC, that decision to go to a startup that ended up in the acquisition by EMC, definitely changed my, kind of career path.
Amazing. And just touching on one thing you said there. So we'll have a lot of first-time managers listening to this. What would be your advice to them, looking back at that time when you took on your first leadership role? What is some advice you could give to those folks?
Oh, that's a great question. Don't get into leadership, and I like to call it leadership. I don't call it management. I think there's a really big distinction, as you know, in the two words. Yeah. I would say don't take on a leadership position because you think it's what you want or should do, or what you should do. Do it because it's something that you just feel innately inside of you that you have a desire to do. Because as you know, leadership positions, you give of yourself, you give your time, you see other people's success through the lens of happy for their success. And some people are good at it, some people aren't. But if you go into it with the wrong intentions, or even if you think you have the right intentions, but it's well, I have to do this because it's my career progression track. No, it doesn't have to be. You can go a lot of different ways. And frankly, I always looked at myself as an individual contributor. I always sought out leadership inside of an IC role. And that's not leadership, it's influence. It is leadership, but influence. You can be, you don't have to have a leadership title to have influence and leadership within a sales org. And sometimes those people are as important, if not so in some cases more important than the actual leader themselves.
I want to go down to learn a little bit more about Coley, the human being. So passion, right? Being passionate obviously is just so important to success. So talk to us, like, what drives you? What are you most passionate about?
Yeah, and I'll keep it to the professional side, because my personal passions are actually a lot of similar.
I want to hear both.
Yeah. Well, I mean, geez, I guess I'm passionate about my family and my children, and that side of it. I haven't always done a great job in balancing that very well. I think that's something COVID taught me, is how to rebalance my work life. I'm a type A personality. I'm a pretty hardcore driver. Not everybody realizes that about me, but I am driven. I always have been from a very young age. I think largely due to my grandfather. I was only the third person out of a very large family, a large extended family, that ever graduated college, and I'm one of the few in that family that went into more of what I'll call a professional white collar job. And my grandfather instilled in me early to go after it, and I always have and never stopped. So, outside of the passion for my family and, some of my hobbies and just generally loving life, professionally, I've got to the point where I'm really passionate about helping people realize their success. And I use a term, it's not mine. I heard it and I love it. And I think you may have probably heard me say it. Don't strive for success, strive for significance. And I got into leadership because I wanted to understand how I could help someone, an individual, a company, a team, myself, become significant, do something that, that takes on a lot of different things. Some of it is, oh, wow, look what we did here. Some of it is, wow, we broke through something that we thought was going to be hard, and it was, but we did it, and here's how we accomplished it. And that's pretty cool. And we did something significant. So my passion comes from that. I've always said, I love asking the question, what motivates you about selling? And I asked very specifically, is it when you get the PO, or is it something else? And for me, the PO, purchase order, that's what we're here to do. That's the culmination of a lot of good work. My favorite part is the when you realize that you're in the middle of a conversation, and you realize that moment when this is going to happen. We've got this. And you know that moment where it just clicks, and even maybe the customer prospect hasn't realized that yet. I love that piece. I love that piece of the chase of the sales campaign. And I also love that piece of team building and helping people when they realize that, oh, wait a minute, it just clicked. If I can be part of that and motivate any way, that moment when it clicks and it's like, oh, I'm taking off, and I've got great examples of that in my career. That is what I'm passionate about. I'm a huge collaborator. And I think it's important to collaborate in a modern sales world, a modern organization, selling organization. You have to get teams to mesh well. You've heard me say that this role is the chief revenue officer. You have to be an ambassador in and out, right? I'm a champion of positivity, as I like to say. So no matter what's happening, I'm the person that will always look at, well, okay, well, here's the silver lining. I'll find it somewhere in there. And then, through all of that professionally, and, personally as well, culture, right? I'm a what you see is what you get kind of person. My professional life is not much different than my personal life. I handle my relationships very similar. And at the end of all of this, when we do it right, when we have everything right, we collaborate, we're very positive, we're engaged. The culture you build inside of an organization is powerful, and it fuels productivity at levels that drive success. And that for me is definitely, I'm very passionate about that, because I do believe I learned early that I wanted to work for cultures that made me feel that way, that I wanted to work for people and cultures where I'm like, I'm gonna work that extra hour, I'm gonna make that extra call, I'm gonna do this extra thing. And because that around you, everyone else is pulling the same direction. And I'm very passionate about being part of that, helping do my part, build and help grow, which is why that you'll probably see for me, I'm going to stay in organizations that are in those early phases, because that's the fun part.
Yeah. And one of the things you've just said in terms of alignment, easy to say it, but maybe harder to actually align people. So how do you do that for people listening? As a chief revenue officer, you've got all the different functions around you, some of which you report into you, some of which you don't. So what would be your advice to people listening? How do you align functions?
I think the biggest thing is park your ego. We all have egos. As I said, I'm a type A. I have an ego, but as I say, I try to keep it healthy and a lot of self-awareness. I think that starts with that. When you can check your ego, don't sweat the things that are not important to the strategy and the vision and the mission. Things that matter tend to kind of bubble, and you are much easier at shedding the things that don't. Because with ego comes drama, and with drama comes slow down. I'm not, interestingly enough, probably like a lot of CROs, I'm an introvert at heart, but I'm a major extrovert in my personality, but I'm an introvert and I'm conflict averse. I hate conflict. I do not like it. I've learned in this career to understand conflict and know it's there, but I will very quickly figure out how we move beyond it, which means I park my ego, because sometimes I might be the one creating the conflict and I'm like, ooh, okay, I got to go solve that. So I think that's the piece for me. As I say, I always aspire to be a transformational leader. Empathy, EQ, all those things, treating people with the same way you want to get treated, understand that this person to this person to this person have different things going on. We're all professionals here. And when I'm surrounded by professionals that I know are doing the work they need to do, then they're going to get out of me the biggest support, the biggest coaching, the biggest, rah-rah. That's what matters. So, I think, and particularly to young leaders, right? Park your ego, be very empathetic to who you're dealing with, because I look at my job. My job's not hard. The hard job is the sellers, the hard job is frontline leaders, the SEs, the channel people, the ones that are right there in the trenches, trying to get it done every day. I'm kind of an orchestrator that's trying to make it easier. So I come from Is this going to help make it easier? Will this help this team? Will this help this person? And make sure that if it doesn't, I'm right there to listen and understand why. Because I was once that person in the trench, and I remember. So yeah, I think so much of it's tied together around, again, collaborate, be an ambassador, listen, be empathetic to what's going on, and recognize that whoever you're interfacing with across the table in your peer group is in a similar situation. We're all trying to do the same thing. And let's make it fun. Because if it's not fun,
yeah,
we put too many hours into a work day to make it not fun. I like to have fun. I prefer to be laughing and joking and getting along than dealing with drama and conflict.
So drama, conflict, friction. I want to stay here for a moment. So yeah. We all have frustrations. So whether that is business, personal, what's just a non-starter for you? Whether it's business, life, people, what gets your goat?
I would probably use two words. Well, maybe it's three, but complacency and status quo. I get very frustrated very quickly, and I've had to work on it, when either individuals, companies, teams are just happy with status quo, particularly if status quo isn't working, and being complacent. I think complacency is the killer of innovation. You got to make yourself uncomfortable in this job, in any job, right? In personal life, right? So I think for me, I get frustrated and negativity and not understanding the potential that, a company, an organization, a team, a person, when people don't live up to their potential, maybe they know they have it, but they just don't live up to it. They're complacent and they're like, that drives me nuts, because I came out of an environment where I wasn't handed things. I went after everything I had, and I was raised well, and I had a really great support system, and I was given tools that many don't have in this life, in this world. So therefore, I don't take any of them for granted. And I think for me, if people are complacent, they take for granted what they have in front of them and what potential and the opportunity they have. I get very frustrated very quickly, and that's when the conflict in me will come out, because it's people wasting potential. And the other side, even in my personal life, and again, it's probably stems from my, incident when I was 30 in the car accident. Don't sweat the small stuff. The worrying is one of the worst emotions. Anger and anger is a totally wasted emotion, in my opinion. No sense to it. And then worrying is another thing that is wasted cycle. So I worry, of course I do, particularly about my kids. I worry about a lot of things, but I don't let it paralyze me. And, I look beyond, I look towards what's beyond it. Everything passes in this life. I think some stuff is really bad, but in the professional world we're selling stuff. There's nothing here that we should ever worry about. Everything passes. And, that the ultimately, I guess what I'll say, particularly over the last, several years for me, I get frustrated when people lose their ability to be bold, right? I think today, and what we're dealing with, take COVID out of it. The digital world, which is, I think we can get into where you fit into that. The digital world has changed everything. Therefore, you have to be bold. You got to take chances. You got to be aggressive. You have to be okay to put yourself in that uncomfortable moment where, boy, this could go sideways. Yeah, it really could, but it could also go wildly right. And when people are paralyzed by complacency, status quo, fear, to not take that bold step, no matter what it is, I will definitely react, because I just can't. I'm the guy that when change is coming, I'm running down and turning that corner. What is it?
Yeah.
So well, I think that's that's what gets my goat. Gets me kind of heated up, is when just people don't waste that opportunity.
So you've had a couple of experiences with Empire, and you've seen our programs in action. So for you, what were the one or two big learnings that you had when you saw our programs rolling out across the organization?
Yeah, I think the first thing is the realization that inside an organization, we're focused, very kind of almost narrowly focused on what we do, our products, and how we go to market, and we do all of those things. in the digital world, you need partners and tools and people and resources and knowledge that give you a broader lens and a broader perspective of what's going on and how you best adapt to the market. So empire selling for me and what you've done, Dan, is absolutely a critical factor of an individual and a team of individuals, as well as a program and services and solutions that provide perspective, insight, and very valuable perspective and insight that gives another view of what's happening and how do you go tackle it. And working with you over the last few years, you've really continued to innovate and add and enhance where you started from, to the point where you're offering this kind of 360-degree view of how do you approach the market? What's the best way to do it? The most strategic way, the most valued way to approach the market. And I think for me, organizations that aren't willing to take in the knowledge that can be gained from you and the Empire team, they're missing an opportunity to add that value. As you know, I say all the time, I recognize that my ability to influence a buyer on their journey has narrowed to the point of it's almost silly anymore. They just don't want to talk to us. And when they engage, or how you engage is so critical, because if you do it wrong, you're shut out. And I think you're very good at helping how you best engage, how you build, kind of that market, that brand in the digital world. And then, I think your Empire provides a very nice set of tools that help along the buyer journey and all the different things you can do and how you interact. I just think that's critical in today's world, because you can't do it the way, as I mentioned back in the day when I had my newspaper, those individuals had to come to me to read my newspaper because it was the only way they could get information. Today, the proliferation of information, data, access, it's everywhere. So we all need coaches to help us say, well, wait a minute, maybe you should think this way, or tweak this, or here's how you change your brand online. Here's how, even the stuff you did for us initially on LinkedIn about the brand. I think that stuff, those little things make a difference in how you present yourself in the brand. And as I mentioned earlier, that's one of the key things for me is, how are we seen in the market to make sure that our value is very clearly articulated through any platform, media, etc., in order to capture the attention and make sure we get to highlight what we do well. So to sum that up, I think Empire Selling is a critical component to a modern selling organization, and a very tried and trusted partner for any selling organization trying to drive high productivity and increase conversion rates.
Wonderful. Coley, thank you. Now, I do have a couple of extra questions for you. The first one is this. So bringing it back to you, what is one thing, just one thing, that most people don't know about you?
I think I alluded to it. I think a lot of people take me to be this very affable, easygoing, and I am, but I burn hot. I burn very hot. I'm uber competitive with myself generally. And I'm so wickedly driven that sometimes, that I've learned a lot to kind of tamp that down. And I don't think a lot of people see that in me, because I come across as very much easygoing, and I am. I'm not saying I'm hiding a monster inside of me, but I burn hot inside. And it's very competitive with myself, back to driven type A personality. I always have pushed myself to, frankly, meet the expectations my grandfather set out for me many, many years ago. And I think that's what a lot of people may not always see in me, because of my general personality does not really show that. So
beautiful. And then one other question, and then we're going to do a quick fire round. So get ready. Other than your current job, of course, what would you be doing if resources, time, and money were limitless?
Oh, that's a great question, and one I have a ready answer for. Man, I would open a bike shop, a high-end bike shop, probably aimed at mountain bikers, but open to the roadies and the triathletes. And I'd have this killer bike shop that served coffee and beer and people hung out at, because I'm pretty passionate about riding bicycles, specifically mountain bikes. I gave up my road biking and my triathlons a long time ago, but I always said to my wife, man, if we hit it big, I'm opening a bike shop, because I think it's hard to make money selling high-end bikes, particularly if I do it the way I would. But that's what I would do, Dan.
Sell a few bikes and drink a few beers. Love it.
Yeah, I don't even care if I sell bikes. I just want to just hang out with riders.
Love it. Superb. We're going to do a quick fire round. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Some of these will be yes, no. Some of them will have a little bit of an answer to it. I might push a few buttons to go a bit further, but let's see what happens. So, quick fire round. Here we go. Quick question. Who is your hero?
My grandfather.
Best sales kickoff you've ever been to, and why?
Ooh, the first one I ever hosted has a special memory, but 2018, because our president and sales leader had just left the business, and a handful of us just kind of took that thing on. It was very organic and very just awesome. But 2018 definitely stands out. But the first one I ever hosted as a CRO in 2020 definitely has a special place in my heart as well.
Beautiful. Are you a morning lark or are you a night owl?
I'm both. I burn it at both ends.
So what time do you wake up in the morning?
I'm generally up most days by 6 a.m., if not sometimes earlier. And sometimes I might even be in bed after the after the day has ended. So it all depends where I am. I don't prescribe to morning or night. I do whatever I need to do, and generally I'm covering both ends.
Love it, love it, love it. Your last Halloween costume?
Oh, well, boy, we're a big Halloween family. The COVID Halloween costume was a little toned down. I think we were Day of the Dead.
Oh, love it. Favorite city in the world?
Oh man, that I'm not a big person on the favorite thing, because I just love to experience a lot of different things. But I'll throw London pretty high up.
There you go. Now, is there one city or one country that you've not visited yet that you would love to go to?
Russia.
Yeah.
I want to see Russia, and I want to see like all of it.
There you go. Maybe on your bike. Let's keep moving. What brings you joy? I think I know the answer to this, but go ahead.
Professionally, what brings me joy is watching people realize their ability to really be successful. Seeing that click. It's the same way again. I coached youth sports. I was never the greatest coach. I coach kids because I wanted to see them realize their potential. And there was nothing more that gets me excited and brings me joy when I watch a kid do something they didn't think they could do, or watch a person achieve something they didn't think they could do. And again, if I had any part of it, that's what brings me joy.
How many cups of coffee do you have a day, Coley?
2, maybe.
Milk, sugar?
No, straight up. Usually I drink 2 half cups.
There you go. Favorite manager you've ever had, and why?
Yeah, that would be Paul Ziter. I mentioned I worked with Paul and I worked for Paul a couple different times. Again, created great sales environments. He was long ago a transformational leader, and he just brought out the best in me. He challenged me. He always saw things a little differently than I did. He dealt with my emotion when I was an emotional seller. Today, I'm a passionate salesperson and leader, but I've got my emotion where I need it to be. But yeah, Mr. Ziter, PZ is definitely the one I'd put there.
Nice. What would you tell your younger self?
Oh man, that's a great question. I would tell my younger self to have a general direction and maybe a path, but don't define it to the point where it becomes inflexible. I think you got to be ready to pivot and change and take life as it comes, because again, driven, had a plan, wanted to do this in these dates. And these days I'm open to whatever comes my way. And sometimes things knock on your door and you got to take the jump.